Brathala's perspective.
I hate them. I truly, truly hate them. This species of brutes and savages who have the audacity to look down their noses at the rest of us and simper and patronize. Or should I say, these species? Because the one species of hellspawn that arose from that forsaken rock didn't have the decency to come to the stars alone, did they? They brought with them their abominations of animals, bioengineered for sapience, without the loss of any of their strength, speed or natural weaponry, because the relatively slow, weak and naturally unarmed primates weren't terrifying enough apparently. Their monstrosities of artificial intelligences, that they alone seem to possess the secret to keeping sane, and their savage cousins, resurrected from periods when the most advanced weapons this species had available were made of stick, stone and bone. Oh, if only we'd found them then. If only our predecessors had had the chance to stain their hands with the blood of a few 100,000 of these people's primitive forebearers, and spare us the need to fight a war with them when they'd grown to a point they could win it. One of these primitive cousins sits across the chamber from me, on the other side of the aquatic species pool. The first one of their representatives to be anything other than the regular breed of Terran, but this man is cast from the precise same mould as the last one in his personality, if not his body. This Tshwani, unnaturally tall and slim for a planet with such high gravity, is exactly the same mix of smug self-satisfaction and infuriating calm that Mudaliar was. I hate it. When I and those I align with shriek accusations at them, and they respond with that calm of theirs, we look like the unreasonable ones. If only the rest of the galaxy could see them for what they are, could see that calm is nothing more than a mask, a front to obscure the greed, ferocity, and lust for power that lies within all of them. The Terran plays at friendship until you have let your guard down. At some point, the thought of being anything other than a submissive slave to them can't even occur to you anymore. That's the method they use to enslave the livestock of their homeworld, and the one they use to assimilate their cousins out of existence, only to clone them back to be assimilated all over again. And is what they're trying to do to us. It's easy for them to seem magnanimous when they hold so much power. Any occasion on which non-Terrans share a room with a Terran who doesn't choose to brutalize them the way no one could stop, many will leave their room thinking, oh, Terrans might not be as bad as I thought. But it's a lie, a ruse, aimed at nothing less than getting the galaxy to let its guard down to the point where no one has the power to stop them seizing control. Just look at the power they've already amassed in the not even 4 decades since they were first discovered. After humiliating us in that piece of theirs, they immediately split Parliament into 2 factions, them and their allies against those of us still trying to resist their insidious political machinations. This manner of division is, as far as I'm aware, unprecedented in GU history. They pick and choose which rules to follow, and which they think are too inconvenient, with an amount of brazen licentiousness unrivaled by any other species. In fact, they will often try to convince us that the laws they choose to ignore are unjust and should be repealed, as they did with the law against AI. The longer I've known of these Death Worlders, the more convinced I am that their planet's gods created them as nothing more than a mass extinction that they then lost control of. Bored of wiping the slate clean with asteroids, volcanoes, ice ages and the ilk, the foolish, arrogant Death World deities decided it would be so much fun to do it with a sapient species this time. Only, right as they were about to fulfill their defined destiny, they realized that doing so would kill them too, and had just enough intelligence to pull themselves back from the brink. These barbarians are without question the single most powerful species in the galaxy, both in terms of hard military power and softer cultural influence. Despite my brother banning the import of any and all Terran products to Bataan worlds, there is a thriving trade in smuggled Terran goods and an utter epidemic of our people circumventing our Galnet restrictions to watch Terran films, read Terran literature and listen to Terran songs. The most infuriating thing of all about Terrans, however, is the extent to which all of them are committed to maintaining the ruse of finding the rest of us. Oh, so cute and adorable. Smaller, furrier, friend-shaped species like mine receive the worst of it, but truly, none are safe. It doesn't matter how logically repulsive they should find your species' physiology. You'll find Terrans out there willing to look at you and declare you the cutest patootie in the most patronizing way you can imagine. It makes my blood boil. Oh, and the less said about their concept of the smash and pass. Oh, and the less said about their concept of the smash or pass list, the better. I shudder just thinking about it. I almost wish no one had disabused me of the misapprehension I had, that the trend was that of Terrans looking at our species and deciding which they would desire to visit, crushing violence upon, and which they did not. The truth was somehow worse. I look to my right where, a few seats away, I see Kaksat, a one-time friend turned bitter rival. When I first arrived at Parliament, a much younger woman, the Lanaksa representative took me under her arm. She guided me through those early years to a much greater extent than my predecessor or advisors at the embassy. We bonded over so many things and stood as allies on so many issues. It was when the war began that we first started to drift apart, her misplaced sympathy for the Death Holders driving a wedge between us. After the peace, any hope for a reconciliation was dashed when she became part of the pro-Terran faction, and her kind sought an ever closer and closer relationship with theirs. Of all the betrayals I've suffered, of all the representatives I watched disengage from the real issue of this age, the Death Holders have no place in the political institutions built by and for Garden Welders. Of all those I've watched become ensnared by the honeyed words of the Terrans, none have stung quite like hers did. I rest my mind from the ruins of that friendship as I see the speaker making her way along the catwalk, passing over the surface of the aqua theatre below us, the freshwater section on her left, salt on her right. She stands around 3 meters tall, having a spindly low-gravity build, digitigrade legs with long cannons that are thicker than any other part of her body, and 3 hard nails in each foot, clacking against the floor with each step. Her skin is teal, her face is flat, but has 2 prominent malar bone spurs extending from its sides. Her cranium is bald and elongated, tapering to a point perhaps 40 centimeters behind her face. Her narrow eyes with black sclera and light blue irises point down in the middle, oriented at around a 45-degree angle. She raises a long, slender arm and extends the 3 thin fingers of that hand to call for silence as the deputy speaker takes his place beside her. Her voice amplified to fill the stadium, translated with a prim and proper, old-fashioned quality and a stern, austere authority that belies her nature as a Class 4, she speaks. Representatives of the Galactic Union, we are convened here today for a momentous occasion. Representative Krim, the Wiwask woman, took the speakership from Representative Wovogjo, the Vingerin, around a year ago when his term ended, and I'm so grateful she did. Her ponderously slow speaking speed, made necessary by the nature of his resonant language, would have made this day even more unbearable than it would be anyway. It is quite tiresome that, with the deadlock between the pro- and anti-Terran factions, the only representatives capable of being elevated to the speakership are those whose people are relatively unaligned and have no personal bias, one way or the other. I'd love to be able to take the speakership myself and use it to thwart those apes' every move. For the first time in 30 years, new species are about to make their debut to the floor of the Galactic Parliament. Speaker Krim continues. I sit up, my whiskers bristling. New species? Was that a translation error? She meant a new species, surely. The Terrans surely didn't find 2 new death worlds out there, did they? Extending her long arm in front of her to the ground level vomitorium, the serious Wiwask woman booms. I ask that all welcome prospective representative Kakoan of the Vrackhand of Groundwork Court and prospective representative Veeg of the Twig of Groundwork Court. The whole of Parliament gasps at the revelation that two species supposedly originated on the same deaf world, and the sound of tens of thousands of people muttering fills the chamber. I turn my head to see them emerge. The smaller one stands around 2/3 my height with green skin, light brown hair, long ears, yellow eyes, and a brushed tail. Honestly, like the humans of Terra, she really doesn't look like one might expect a Death Order to look. Though I know that doesn't mean anything. Death Welders are never to be underestimated. By contrast to the small one, the other woman is positively monstrous. That's a species for whom the moniker Death Welder could not feel more fitting. More than twice my height, and longer still than that, her 8 long spiny legs sprawl out from the pronegade rear of her body, armoured in glossy bluish black with the feet of glistening metallic red. If I didn't already know what she was, the fact that each of those feet, along with the spines that jut from further up her legs, were covered in squishy green protectors might reassure me. It's fine, I think. She looks monstrous, but her feet needing that protection means she must be quite fragile. Knowing this is a Death Welder I'm looking at makes it obvious that the protection isn't for her benefit. It's for the floors. Her awful-grey torso, wrapped in rich silk, has 2 tridactyl arms that protrude from the shoulders and 2 prolonged crude manipulators that extend from its bottom front. One of them looks as if it's been smashed and glued back together, the golden glue making the brutal injury very obvious by its contrast with the glossy bluish black. Her mouth is flanked by 2 cruel curved fangs of the same red stuff her feet and claws are made of. A patch covers the place on the right side of her face that, on the left, bears 2 eyes, claw marks visible both above and below it. It's all I can do to keep myself from quailing at the sound of her unnaturally heavy bulk, as the 2 of them make their way down the aisle to the front. I need to find a way to keep these 2 out of Parliament, and their species out of the GU.